Gently rub your thumbs, make them warm, place them on your eyes, with a few winds gently open your eyes. Namaste.
Namaste.
How do you guys feel? Okay? Tired? No. You guys woke up at 4 a.m. today. Most of you said that हम तो इतने बजे सोने जाते हैं. Really not tired? Okay, then you are ready to learn. So we have with us Sraddhalu ji. I have a one-liner intro for him. When he talks, you will not need this. Sraddhalu ji is a scientist, educator, and a scholar residing at Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Pondicherry. And before I could introduce him, remember yesterday Raghav ji had already talked about Sraddhalu ji, and he has said that we have to prepare to listen to you. So over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Many of you are preparing for life, and many among you have already entered life. You are thinking of your future, career, work, family, health, relationships, finances, retirement, old age. Typically, these are the issues that you're thinking about and planning for. For each of these, there are at least 5 or 6 criteria or factors, unknowns that you need to plan for or prepare for. The problem though is the future is so unknown, so unpredictable, that any plan you make today will fail within a few years. You have no certainty of what will happen. Even in terms of job security, anything that you can train for today, if someone can train you to do something, they can equally train the AI, and the AI will learn 10 times faster than you can and do it 10 times more efficiently than you can. Any job that you can train for will not be yours. It will go back to artificial intelligence, who will do it better and cheaper. So this is one of the crises we are facing, which makes the entire future of humanity uncertain. I was in a conference, it was a meeting for a group of management students in a large institution. There 200 of them were of the highest marks. There was a special meeting to give them awards. And this is what I said to them, that everything you have learnt to get your high marks is entirely useless for the future, because if you could learn it, AI can learn it. If you really want to be able to do something useful with your life, even in terms of careers, then you will have to be able to do something which AI cannot do. And what can you imagine that you can do which AI cannot replicate, cannot learn from you even?
Wow. Emotional intelligence.
Okay, emotional intelligence, but you can't live your life with emotions alone.
Arts.
Yes, arts perhaps, but AI can do beautiful images by copying you and integrating across thousands, millions of artists. So, yes, yoga, what does that mean even? You take postures, AI can do that. No. There's one thing you can do, which is pure creativity. To be able to create something which has never been done by anybody else before, that AI cannot replicate, because AI will only replicate what it has seen from other people before you. Are you capable of creating something which has never been created before? And I don't mean a fantasy of compilation and combination of things made by others. Try to imagine, let's say we are going to create a science fiction movie. Imagine a form of an extraterrestrial who comes. But imagine a form which has never been created before and which is not a replica of things you have seen. You see how difficult that is? You'll inevitably end up with imitation of things you've already seen, but now combining many pieces to make one new but it's not new. It's just combination of the old. AI can do it better than you and faster. Right? True creativity is to be able to literally draw something which has never been expressed before, but which should be accessible to you and probably exists somewhere in some higher realm, perhaps. Isn't it? Where in your entire education did they teach you to do this? Do you understand the problem? All of our educational training is largely a waste, because anything you can mug up by reading books, learn by heart, is useless because AI can do it better than you. What would make you you? What would make you special? What would make you creative? What would make you capable of creating on earth something which has never been created before, was never taught to you? And this is the failure of the current educational system, which was designed under British colonial rule, not just in India, across the world, to make you a nation of clerks who will be paper pushers and pass exams by learning by heart. Not creators, not leaders, not truly capable of being your potential. Now, I'm not going to go into that direction. I'm going to look at this picture from a bigger perspective. For all these things that you're preparing for your life, the level of uncertainty is so great in the future that anything you plan for 5 years down will become irrelevant. If you make an investment with a company that says, 20 years later, we will give you 5 times the money, you have no guarantee the company will survive. That's the pace of rapidity of change. You see how much a single mobile phone has changed our lives. And you have soon, Elon Musk will release Optimus. It will be as radical a change. Okay? So things are moving at such a pace, mostly technology driven, that we are struggling to keep pace. But more important than all this, with all that uncertainty, if you are running a business, if you have done any little work, you realize that the information you have to plan for your future is insufficient and unreliable. Everybody out there is lying. You're on social media, everybody is putting up pretense. You are putting up pretense. Every company is making statements they pay the media to tell you, which are complete lies, just to create an image, to push up their perceived value. 5 years from now, this is our valuation. It's all made up. On what basis will you take a decision? You have no reliable information. And the information is on such an overload. Medical research data is doubling every 4 years. You don't have the time to read everything. How will you even keep up if you're a doctor, for example? Or even if you're a researcher, you can't. If you spend your time reading other people's research, you'll have no time for yourself. And you'll still not have enough time to read all that has been published now. For the rest of your life, you'll be busy reading. You have an information overload, you have information uncertainty, and at the end of it, all of that is useless because circumstances will change radically within a few years in a way that you cannot foresee. How do you plan for your life? How can you find fulfillment in what you want to do? And this is the question I want to address by going to the core of the whole issue. In fact, I'm going to reduce this whole point to one single question and from there derived a second question. And if you can answer your first question, you will find from that answer everything you need to realize whatever you want to achieve in your life. The second question will then give to your realization of what you want to do in life a direction. Okay? Because without direction, what happens to your life? It's a very interesting statement that the mother makes. An aimless life is a miserable life. Think about it. Think about how much of your life is just wandering around waiting for things to happen and you're miserable. But what will be your aim? If I ask you, you'll say, I want to do this, I want to be that. Out of 20 things you could do, why did you pick that? You don't have a reference. So, first question I'm going to ask you, which is going to decide everything else. And it may sound a little abstract at first, but you will think about it and you will see what it leads to. First question, who are you truly? Think about it. Who are you truly? Because based on who you are is the outcome of everything of your life. If you're a dog on the road, you have a certain outcome of life. If you're a dolphin in the ocean, you have a certain outcome of life. You're a human being, well, you can have many outcomes, but you're not just a human being. You are this special person that you are, isn't it? And what is this special person that you are going to unfold, become in your life? Really, the question comes back to who are you truly? And we're going to address this question. We're going to find an answer. And the second question, which will derive from this, which will decide then the direction, is why are you here? I'm going to first answer these two questions from the perspective of conventional science because, well, we have been told science is the great all intelligence which answers all your questions, and they know nothing. First question, who are you truly? They will say you are an agglomeration of so many cells and biological processes. And how did that happen? By chance. What is chance? Ask the scientist. Really ask the scientist. What is chance? They'll say chance is a function in nature. It happens by chance. So this thing happened. It happened by chance. Meaning what? Chance is a key word which we use to cover up our ignorance. When I say I don't know, I say it happened by chance. So I don't have to explain. And science creates a whole theory around chance, which says when I don't know something, I create a theory to describe how to manage what I don't know. That's all chance is. I don't know. You understand? Now, when you say that we came together by chance, and the theory at least we are told is somehow some molecules fell into place and become a single cell. And somehow that single cell began to multiply by chance. And somehow by chance many cells joined together and became a creature. And somehow that creature evolved by chance, by chance, by chance, by chance. That's your theory, evolutionary theory. And then by chance you're sitting here and thinking, and you have a brain that's functioning, and you have a beautiful flower on your ear by chance. So if we are here by chance, then the whole meaning of life is only chance. It has no purpose, it has no direction. In fact, they go so far, and it's so ridiculous when you think about it. They say your thoughts are not your thoughts. They are just ripples of electricity in your brain. Your emotions are just variations of hormones and electricity in your nervous system by chance. Remember? Now, I'm going to break this whole, you can already see it's not true. It's like saying if you take a few pieces of metal and sand and put it in a box and shake for 1,000,000 years, suddenly everything will fall into place and become a working computer, laptop. Yeah? Do you agree? Do you believe it's possible? It's ridiculous. Because in the very processes of nature, for example, you cannot build a cross because the force which builds one line will destroy the other line. So nature cannot do many things inherently. In the nature of the functioning of chance in nature, certain things are absolutely impossible, and those things are essential for life, isn't it? We see, for example, in the formation of the eye. The eye itself required 14 layers of genetic modification. Each layer was useless in itself, but they had to form one after another in sequence, layering on top. And when the last modification took place by chance, by the way, each of the 14 steps, when the last by chance happened, suddenly you had a working eye. Do you believe that? It's ridiculous. It does not make sense. And you don't exist. You are just this functioning of brain ripples. Now I'm going to break all this and set it aside and bring back to the original question, who are you truly? And we'll find an answer now which will also resonate with what you feel. And first I'm going to ask you, do you feel you're here by chance? Or do you feel deep within you, no, there is a purpose. There is something to be realized. There is a meaning to my being here, to being born, even to being here right now. Do you feel that? What is your subjective feeling within you? Do you feel you're here by chance? Anybody feels that? No. You feel? Mixture, because you have been programmed to think of chance. But what do you feel inside you? Do you feel it's chance, there's no meaning, or you feel, no, there is a meaning, but I don't know what? Okay, catch that. Catch that sensation deep inside you. You know there is something to be done, I just don't know what it is. So I say, oh, maybe it's true that it is by chance. No, you feel it. Trust that. first. And you notice it is something very deep inside. Now, this deep inside is very important, and it comes to this core question of who we are. Because when we do experiments in the laboratory, we can actually watch your brain functioning. So, if I give you, for example, I ask you to choose between your left hand and your right hand. And at the moment when you make a free choice, remember it should be a free choice, you push a button. Okay? Now, suppose you did that experiment, and we do this in the laboratory. I say, okay, I'm going to choose between left and right. I just chose. Okay? By chance, remember? So when you push your button to say, I have chosen right now, I made a free choice. If you're watching the brain, an entire 250 milliseconds, that is a quarter second before, in the brain, I can already see what you're going to choose and anticipate. That's why AI can play you. AI can hack you because it can monitor you at a level that you're not conscious. So the scientists concluded that's because we are product of our brain. There is no real free choice. No, that's not true either, because we can show that there is free choice. But what the scientists do not understand is when you say, I'm conscious and I'm making a choice now, you are only conscious of your surface layer. You have layers and layers and layers behind of which you are not fully conscious, where the actual choice is made. And that's reflected in the brain. It's not a brain product. It's a consciousness product which is using brain. But consciousness is layered. Now this is critical to understand. So when you say that I'm not sure, but I feel somewhere deep inside, observe what you feel, what you know is happening many, many, many layers within deep inside. But it's at a layer where you're not fully conscious. Now if at that layer you could become conscious, let's say now you concentrate on that, concentrate. And literally you'll have a feeling as if you're going deep, 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 as if you're daydreaming but inward. And then suddenly you'll come to that layer and you'll say, yes, I know I'm not here by chance. And if you go a little further, how do I know? You go deeper, deeper, deeper. There's a point which is fascinating where you will actually become aware of the moment and the reason why you took birth. It's amazing as an experience, but it's accessible to all of us if you choose to make that concentration. And think of this, all of your life, your entire education told you, do not go in, turn out. Why are you wasting your time daydreaming? Look outside, do something, chase something, write something, shout, scream, run. But don't stop and feel what is inside you. Do not find yourself. Why? So that when you are fully turned outside, you are hackable, you can be manipulated, you are sheep who can be moved around. But when you go within and find yourself, you are master of yourself. You can choose freely without being manipulated from outside. You understand how important this is? So this first question, who are you truly? And we're going to address this on two levels. First, you realize there is something deep within you where you feel, I'm not here by chance. You go deep enough, you will actually feel, oh, I know I came and I took birth. There are people who, having done that, they actually remember that moment where they said, oh, now I'm going to take birth. Interesting. And then if you go deep enough into that, you can also recall your past lives. Because the memory is not gone, it is all there. Because you are the same who chose to take birth across lives. Now, this is a fact of experience. I have met so many people who have actually done this, and it's not difficult. The only thing is you were never told that it's possible, or you were never given a chance to put it into practice. That's all. But straight away with this comes a complete shift of your sense of who you are. I'm actually someone who has had many lives, which I don't remember here on the surface, but I do remember inside. And the imprint of that memory is operative in me from inside out. Now, some of you might notice have, or you've seen others who have unusual phobias. One child, no experience of water. He looks at water and he gets tremendous fear. Why? Because in some prior incarnation recently, he had a really bad accident in water or perhaps died in water. And the memory of that imprint stays inside you and is influencing your behavior and your personality today. And you have no idea where it's coming from. You understand? And if you could become conscious of that, of course you can change it, but you can master it, but you can then overcome and say, oh, this life I'm going to learn to swim, so I will never drown. And you correct for that fear. So first, when you ask yourself who you are, I've taken you straight to the core that you are not this body. You are a person who has been through many lives and who has taken birth. And when you took birth, you had a certain intention. You had a certain purpose. Why am I going to take birth? I want to experience this. I want to grow in this way. I want to achieve this. I want to realize that. There's an example Sri Aurobindo gives. Let's assume you were a king, or a king has spent a whole life in luxury, but he has also tremendous responsibility, authority, and has developed a capacity to lead people. Let's say he was a good king. And at the time when he is about to leave his body, because we never die, we are immortal, okay, the true you is immortal. You're about to leave your body. You look back, oh, I've had this wonderful life, I've achieved so much, but I've never experienced what it is like to have nothing. What's it like to have absolutely nothing? That would be a fascinating experience. And the soul chooses, I'm going to take birth next time in a family where there is nothing available. And when he takes birth, the goal is to start with nothing and build the entire kingdom from zero. Wow, what an adventure that will be. This is how the soul's perspective is. Okay? So he takes birth in a family of extreme poverty, barely surviving, and then from there begins to develop his capacity. So now in the child, with no surface awareness of it, there'll be this tremendous drive. I must ensure that nobody will remain poor. I must achieve this. I must create that. I must have so many people. And I will make sure nobody has poverty afterwards. Where did the drive come from? It's not as if it was in reaction to the parent's situation. It was the soul's choice at the point of entry into life. So when you start asking yourself this question, who am I truly? The second question now begins to become answered. Why am I here? I chose to take birth, but what did I choose to do? What did I choose to realize in this life? And because you chose that, the entire turn of your personality is in a certain direction. Now, there are various ways to describe this. For some of us, we describe it in this way. And broadly, we describe 4 turns of nature, 4 drives or motivations which we are driven by. The first and the one which we call it first because it leads everything else is the drive for knowledge. I want to know. Now you'll notice all of us want to know. Okay? All 4 drives are within all of us. First, I want to know. Now as a child, while you're a fetus in the womb, we can now today watch a fetus through ultrasonic and other means. And what do you see? When the parents talk, the fetus turns. Where is this voice coming from? I want to know. Okay? And when it is born, it hears the same voice. It tries to open the eyes. Who is this voice I've been hearing for so many months? I want to know. Interesting. You show a baby an image, let's say, as you do in a magic show, I create a little ball or a cube and I hide behind a support. So the baby sees the thing hanging in midair. The child looks at it and says, what is this? And starts crying. I don't understand. I want to know. You've seen a magic show? What's your first response? How did you do? I want to know. The drive to knowledge is rooted deep within us. We cannot avoid it. Okay? Second impulse. When you know, what do you do next? I want to do what I know. Okay? So, the second drive in us is to want to act with force, and this creates a different type of temperament. The third impulse, which also comes from here, is the tendency to help, grow, increase, exchange, interact, interpersonal exchanges, link with everybody, take, give, etc. And the fourth is to make beautiful, to make perfect, to make complete. Now, these 4 tendencies are the basis of what in the past we used to describe as the 4 Varna. The British took this deep psychological truth of human nature, twisted it and called it caste system, and they made 2000 castes. Now, castes are nothing but communities. It's a bigger discussion. We won't have that now. They are communities. It was used to, Varna was misrepresented as caste. Varna is only 4. And Varna, all of us have all 4. But in all of us, one of these dominates. And often that sets the direction of your life. I'm going to give an example. Let's say for whatever reason, your parents perhaps decided for you, you are going to be a doctor. So you go through the whole training program of a doctor. But if your temperament was of knowledge, you'll be a thinking doctor. That means you won't be interested in the practice. You will very likely go into research. Medical research will be your line, right? If your temperament is the second type, what will be your drive? I want to do, I want to achieve, I want to create, I want to overcome problems. So I will be an activist doctor. You see the difference? Third temperament is exchange and growth. You will not be a good doctor. You will be a businessman of a doctor. I will trade, I will make money. Perhaps I will create a hospital, but my focus will not be patients, it will be numbers and profits. If you have the fourth temperament, you will say, I really care for my patient. I will wake up in the middle of the night, go to their house and make sure that they will get healed. So who makes the best doctor? Isn't it? The fourth type, but you still need the knowledge. You still need the drive. You have to wake up in the middle of the night and go and help a mother deliver a baby. You still need to be able to transact and interact. But if you do not have a predominance of love, care, affection, doing your job well with precision and interest, you will not be a good doctor. You understand? So the idea is all four are needed, but one of these predominates and becomes the turn of your temperament. Now all of this is still not describing everything. Remember I said the soul chose a certain line of experience. Based on what it chose is this turn of your nature. Four broad directions, but the soul has all four. And across lives, we try out each one of these four. So that across many lives, we actually develop a complete blend of all four. I'm going to show you two people. One, they both have, let's say, the same training. Maybe they're born in the same family. They've gone through the same education. But this one is extraordinarily successful. That one is still struggling to find any useful result in his life. What is the difference between the two? And it will come down to these four things and how much you've developed them. The more of these four you have developed and integrated, the more effective you can be in whatever you choose to do in your life. If you have a major lack for any one of these four, you can't do it. What do? You take someone's help. Who will have the thing which is missing in you? And that's why the need for teams. That's why inherently in any operation of any kind, whether it is a business, whether it is a military operation, whether it is a organization of some project, you will need four of these things, and often it ends up being four people. So look at the structure of a business. You have the board, which is the knowledge base. Then you have the administrative heads, CEO, who will drive the knowledge. A decision is taken, he will now work to implement. Then you have the managers who handle the exchanges of resources, organization and timing of materials, etc. And the fourth is where there's craftsmen who actually build and make the thing which is your product or the service. You need all four. Now, all of us have all four, as I said, but one of these dominates, and that dominates by the choice of your soul. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know why you took birth, you will find yourself wandering without aim, without focus, and therefore a miserable life. You see why this question is so important. But that's not enough. You see, I said we are formed of biology, naturally. We took birth in a body. But we don't have just one body. You've heard perhaps in the yoga tradition, we speak of three bodies. You have a physical body, which is made of these cells which you can touch. You have a pranamaya kosha. Kosha means, sheath, covering, because from the soul's point of view, these are coverings you have taken on. So when you chose to take birth, you wanted a biological body, that's a sheath covering you. But you are not body, it's a sheath. So, annamaya kosha. Anna is food. Why do we call it food body? Well, because you eat to make the body. But what is interesting is the whole world which is physical is anna. Why? Because the nature of the physical world is everything is eating something else and at the same time is being eaten by something else. So as you eat food, you have bacteria within you which eat you, right? Eventually your body decomposes or breaks down and is used by other things. The tree eats you and then you end up eating the tree's fruit. Everything is eating. So this is annamaya. But the next one is called pranamaya. is the sheath of your life force, vitality. Now you'll wonder, what is this body of vitality? Does it make sense? I don't see vitality. Would you agree with that? Or have you felt, have you sensed? Somebody walks into the room and says, oh wow, you feel the vitality. You have had that experience? You've noticed how it works. Sometimes all of us, a large number are talking, someone walks in, you've hardly seen the person and you turn. We call it charisma, magnetism. You've seen people, often these are famous politicians or film actors, they have charisma. Otherwise you can't be effective as a politician or an actor. They don't look particularly good, but they wield power, vitality, force, energy, and they can play it. I'll give an example. You've heard the name Marilyn Monroe. She's a very famous actress at one point. There's an incident from her life narrated by one of her friends. So the friend and they are in a store buying groceries. She's dressed completely ordinary, half covered, and nobody has noticed her. Then Marilyn tells her friend, now watch what I will do. She shakes her head and kicks in her life energy. Immediately, everybody in the store turns and says, look, Marilyn Monroe. What did she do? Fascinating. You can actually activate the energy like a switch or close it and become practically invisible. But when you activate it, it impacts everybody around you. You can even impact at a distance. I'm going to share with you an experience. It's a warning. It's not something I would say normally in public, but I think it's a warning for you also not to trust your emotions. And your emotions are a product of your play of your life energies. But this is a very important warning. There's a person I know, okay, and I've seen him do this, and I've had others also confirm this. He will tell you, point to me on the road. He will say, point to me any dog. You've seen in the streets, it's common you see dogs. You point to that particular dog. This person will stare at the dog. After a while, suddenly the dog will get up and turn towards him and start barking. What did he do? Now I'm going to give you another example, and this is the one which is a warning for you. So be very careful about trusting your emotions and impulses. So this person is sitting in a restaurant with a friend, and he tells a friend, point out anybody in this restaurant. Human being, not dogs, okay? So the friend says, okay, he picks out some girl that he thinks is very attractive. This is that one. So this person says, oh, okay, okay, fine. And then he continues, they continue eating, but he's doing something energetically. In 15 minutes, that girl walks by next to their table, stops, looks at him, and as if goes to the toilet, then comes back again, looks at him and stops. I think I have met you before. Where have we met? You see how it works. But that's not the end of the story. Oh, so the person says, oh, it's nothing particular. She goes back to her table. She can't contain herself. Suddenly she comes over, takes a chair, sits down next to them. Can I eat with you? Now, if you ask this girl, what happened? She will say, I don't know, I felt some tremendous attraction. It's as if I have known him all my life and suddenly I felt overwhelmed that I should connect with him or something of that extent. You all felt such things occasionally? Do not trust. You can be hacked, you can be manipulated on the level of energies, and this is actively done by people, men and women, charismatic men and women. They do this all the time. That's why they're charismatic. All successful businessmen have this huge vitality and they direct it in this way. They sense you out when you come in, they want to hire you, they sense you. How much of your vitality is strong, how much can they control and influence you? The whole game is played on the level of energetic influence. This is happening with your Pranamaya Kosha and on your Pranamaya Kosha. And if you're not conscious of it, you are a puppet, a victim of impulses. Now think of all of your life. How you take decisions, why you take decisions, okay? You go to a place for eating, you will say, what would you like to eat? This. Why? Impulse at that moment. Do you know that impulse can be hacked? You can be made to choose something and you wouldn't even know it. And you'll think, I chose in my freedom. No, you did not. You were manipulated, all at the level of life energies. And these are actually done. And I'm not going too much into detail, but I want you to understand, anytime you have an impulse, do not trust it. All impulses are hackable. They are impulses finally. They are not you choosing freely. An impulse binds you. It is not freedom. The biggest mistake the youth today makes, because you're programmed to, and I want you to be conscious and to correct for it. The biggest mistake is to think that freedom is to be impulsive. No, impulsiveness is the greatest slavery. It's not freedom. Does that make sense? Do you agree with this? To be a victim of your impulsiveness is a slavery to your impulsiveness. It's not freedom. What would be freedom? Freedom is when you can do something which is against your own impulses. Does that make sense? Would you agree with this? That's when you are truly free, when you can do something against the impulse. My strong impulse is, I want this, I want to eat this, I want to go after this, I want to meet that man who I think I have a past life connection. No, he's hacking me. You didn't know that. But that's an impulse. And I choose not to follow the impulse. That's freedom. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you truly want to be free, the first thing you would want to do is to master all your impulses, refuse them even, and then make a conscious choice which is not impulsive, which comes from a higher understanding, and do that even if it's uncomfortable to do. Then you will be free. Otherwise, all of your life you will be a slave of impulses, and since your impulses can be hacked, you will be manipulated. So in our tradition, we have two terms, Shreya and Preya. Preya is that which you like to do, impulsive driven, desire driven. Choices made by desire. That's inferior, you are hackable. Shreya is that which is superior, which you know to be right and good, irrespective of desires of yours or others. And to make the choice requires you to rise above your own impulsiveness and find a higher freedom. Now, remember, you're being taught the whole programming of society, of advertising, and even your education is to follow your impulse, follow your mood, follow your heart, they will say. It sounds nice. No, don't follow your impulsiveness. Because that's when you are manipulated through advertisements, through boards. And the manipulation is very, very powerful. There's a whole technology developed. If you're interested, look up Marshall McLuhan, I think. He's the one who developed the whole technology of advertising. Manipulation. Look up a field called neuro-linguistic programming. How with the use of particular words you can manipulate other people's behavior and ideas and thinking and emotions. Literally hypnotize you without you realizing it. And this is the technology used through advertising. I'll give two examples. Do you notice suddenly in the last 10 years, all over the country, you'll have messaging, sometimes advertisements, sometimes boards on the road, don't drink and drive. Okay? So you'll say, oh, it's a very good advice, right? No, it's not. What they are doing is, don't drink and drive, but you can drink as long as you don't drive. Suddenly drinking becomes acceptable social behavior. And look at the subtle change made. What is drinking? Do you drink? No, I don't drink. What do you mean? You don't drink water? The game they have played you is the word drink has been associated with alcohol. Look, I'm drinking. No, you're not drinking. This is water. Water is not drinking. Alcohol is drinking. I don't drink. You see the game? Now you are somehow inferior because I don't drink. But of course I'm thirsty. So implicit in the neuro-linguistic programming, the advertising hypnosis is if you're not drinking alcohol, you're somehow inferior. And if you drink alcohol, you're normal. But don't drink and drive. But please drink. That's the programming that's happening. Responsible drinking. Suddenly by drinking, you become responsible. You see how the game is played in your mind? You're not even conscious. They're hacking you at those layers behind, which you're not conscious of, from where you are programmed and your behavior is changed. What happens when you take alcohol? You lose your freedom. You lose your ability to make a choice. You are now driven by the impulsiveness of your lowest grade of behaviors. And that's why people behave in strange ways when under alcohol. And that's why in business, they make you drink alcohol because then you can reveal all the secrets. You'll reveal what you truly want. or don't want, or fear. But all this is to warn you, you are being hacked all the time. Rise above your emotional impulsiveness. Make a conscious choice by the Shreya, the part in you which knows what is superior. Then I'm going to give you an example of how powerful this vitality can be practically. It's not just about impulses, it's also about your biology. Because your biology is driven by your vital energy. If you have weak vital, your biology will be weak. If you strengthen your vital energy, your biology will be strong even if it appears to be weak. And I'm going to give you an example. I would like for that one volunteer. Would you like to come? Please. Stand here, facing them. Extend your arm. Extend your arm up. Okay. Now, hold this tight. I'm going to pull down, resist. No, resist it. Hold it up like this. Okay. Yes, yes. Okay, strong man. Huh? Full strength. Okay. And with one finger, I'm doing this. Watch. Now, I want you to concentrate. Feel inside your arm and visualize a flow of energy. White light. Close your eyes. Concentrate. Concentrate. Feel the energy. And slowly let it increase. As if a gush of flowing like water, pure white light energy, vitality. Now feel from your feet, you draw energy through your feet, through your chest, and then out through the arm. Good. And amplify it now. Very good. And increase it more. Increase it more until it becomes intense. And again intensify it. Okay, now hold your hand. Hold your hand. You can see what's happening with. Okay, stop. You can open your eyes. You saw the difference the second time. The hand was much stiffer. I had to use 2 or 3 fingers to pull down, and still I couldn't pull beyond this much. What was your experience? What is easier?
Not easy, both energy feel.
Yes, and at that time, did you feel it was easier to hold? Huh?
Yeah.
You had no strain. There was no muscle effort. What is interesting is when the energy is flowing, and this was purely, we did maybe a minute of concentration, visualizing an energy, feeling it, you notice the strain in him was less. He was relaxed. The first time he was going, the second time he was relaxed, and I had to use the full force of my hand with several fingers, and I still couldn't get it beyond this level. What happened? The biological capacity got amplified by the flow of life force. Okay, thank you. You saw this, how effective it can be. Now, there's a whole training system which was taught in the Raja Yoga tradition, which has largely been lost within India. There's still some schools which have it in Kerala, and I don't know in Tamil Nadu if it is still there, but in Kerala it is still there in the Kalari training. But it has survived in some of the Buddhist traditions which took a lot from the Raja Yoga training, and particularly when they went to the Himalayas, all of the yogis had this technology, but it is largely today known under the Tibetan name of Sumo fire. Sumo, a variation of how the English pronunciation comes. What they do is, they train you to amplify your life force by using certain breathing and visualization exercises, just as you did now, but centering on other parts of the body. And with that, you amplify your body heat. And once you've mastered this, there's a test you have to pass. So in Tibet, you can imagine how cold it is. At night, you have a frozen lake, you cut a hole, sit next to the hole, you dip a blanket soaking in freezing water, and you sit bare-bodied and wrap the blanket around you at night and dry it with your body heat. When it's dry, you put it again and wrap around you, and through the entire night you have to keep drying blankets of freezing water with your body heat. And in the morning, if you have still survived, then you have passed your test. After this, the monk can live in the snow, bare-bodied, for the rest of his life. And you'll see videos of these people. They will lie down in the snow, go to sleep, wake up, bare-bodied, walk on. No problem. Now, if you look at it purely from your biological science, your body does not have enough calories to produce so much heat. Where did the heat come from? You're not depending on biology, you're drawing from the life energy. Life energy you can draw infinitely from the universe because it's everywhere. you effectively become free of the limitations of your biology. Now, there are many other things you can do once you can master the life force. As you saw, your strength can be amplified. Now, many of the Tai Chi masters, you will see in Tai Chi, the whole focus is on relaxing the body. You don't build muscle strength, you relax. And by relaxing, you can do something much more intensely, much more fast. And it's done by life force. So, for example, you will see these people, they break a brick in karate. They break a brick. The brick is harder than your bone. So, if you went with pure biology, you hit hard, you'll break your bone. The brick doesn't break. So, what breaks the brick? Life energy. But life energy at a layer which is densified, which is around the hand, and the actual hit takes place on an edge which is just around the hand. Have you ever noticed this boundary around the head? Let's see if you can see this around me. Can you see around the head a haze like a whitish light? Can you make out? Look particularly at the background behind. Don't look at the head, look at the background. And keep staring at the background. And after a while, you notice there's like a haze around where the air is brighter. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah? This is actually part of your pranamaya kosha. Okay? Now, watch carefully. You see my hand here. Watch carefully the hand and look at the haze around the hand. Look at the haze around the head. Okay? You can see both?
Yes.
You can see?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, all of you over at the back, you can see. Now watch. In between, can you see like an elastic stretching? Can you see that? And I'm moving deliberately so that you can see it like an elastic, it moves like a line. Can you see this? Okay. Look at the white behind. Okay. You can see the haze around the head, haze around the hand. Look at the white in between. Can you see? Huh?
Yes.
Yes? Have you been able to see from here? Look at the white behind. You can see here also? You were able to see? Okay. How many could see? Okay, pretty good. 70% could see. Very good. So what are you seeing? It's obviously non-biological. It has nothing to do with your body cells. And yet it is substantial. Right? What is it made of? And if this thing exists, it's certainly more powerful than your biology. Your biology depends on it. It doesn't depend on your biology. If you can change this, you can change your biology. Isn't it? Try this experiment. Again, a variation of this. Bring your two palms together at a distance of about 2 centimeters. And relax your palms and slowly bring them close and move them side to side, forward, backward, closer, farther, slight movement. You notice the sensation? Like you brought two magnets together. Can you do that? Everyone can feel it? If you find it difficult, close your eyes and feel. And then once you can feel it, open your eyes and notice. Can you feel as if something is touching, like a field, like a magnetic field around? Okay? Now, this is actually a physical sensation you're having, but of a substance which is non-physical, isn't it? So that's why we will call it a subtle physical. It's subtle, but it's physical also at the same time. And this is part of your pranamaya kosha, your energetic body. Now, what is important here to understand is this energetic body and your biological body are fused together, but they're separate at the same time. They're distinctly different things, but fused together. What happens when your body has a cut? From a purely biological way, think about it in this way. Let's say I have a deep cut. The cells on both sides of the cut have died. The body is now rebuilding. When it starts rebuilding, how do the cells know in which direction to rebuild? How does the muscle tissue know that I have to build a fiber and from the other side another fiber and the two fibers will touch? Because the cells don't have a GPS, they don't have vision. How do they know in which direction to grow? Why don't they grow just anywhere like a cancer? There is something there which is guiding the cells. and guiding them in which direction to grow, like an electric field or like a magnetic field. You see, when you put a magnet under a paper and you throw iron filings, you'll see it takes the lines of force. This thing which you felt, saw, are the lines of force of your life energy which form your physical body, which controls the repair mechanism of your physical body. Okay? If you can modify that, you can modify your physical body. If you can modify that, you'll modify the shape of your physical body. You can reduce your weight, increase your weight, change the shape, heal something, even replace a scar tissue with no limit, because that is the template which controls the biology. I'll give you an example because this is quite fascinating. As an example, and some of you will be perhaps interested to experiment with this. When I was a child, I was in kindergarten, must have been age 5 or so. I had a little scratch here because of a metal buckle, and there was a scratch in the arm. 10 years down, the scratch was still there, the scar tissue had formed. At the age of about 35, I said to myself, how is this? My body has grown so many times. I'm like at least 4 or 5 times heavier than what I was in kindergarten. All the cells have been replaced multiple times. So why is the scar tissue still there? Science does not give you an answer to this. But you can understand this if you understand that the energy of your pranamaya kosha, your energy body, actually is the template for the gross body. So as long as in the energy body there was a scar, the memory of the scratch, the damage, the trauma of it is held, it is rebuilding new tissue, new cells around the trauma, so there is a scar. So at the age of 35, I said, I must change this. So I did what I had to dissolve that scar. Okay, the energy, in the energy, because you can't change in the biology easily, but you can change in the energy, which is plastic. You saw I can actually stretch it. It's plastic substance. Okay, so it can change with your thought. You direct your thoughts, it changes shape. You can extend it, you can project it, etc. So I put an intention to dissolve that scar. I forgot about it, and then about a year or two later, I said, what happened to that scar? And I looked for it, and I couldn't remember on which arm it was. Interesting. You see, the trauma had been erased. So the memory of the trauma had gone. I couldn't remember which arm it was. And in both arms, I checked, the scar is gone. And then through an indirect way, I recovered, it was on the left arm, but the scar is totally gone. What did I do? I just put an intention in the energy body. It changed my biology. Now think about how powerful this is for your future, for your well-being, for your health. I'm going to give you one other example which will perhaps be too shocking, but it shows you the potential. You know, there are people who get possessed. You've heard about this, okay? It's real. If there's a weakness in the nervous system, sometimes an entity can enter in and take possession. The person speaks with a different voice, even the appearance changes, and it's not nice, but it's like that. Now, there are examples of people who used to be possessed by several beings. So the personality would switch. It would be a different voice, male voice, female voice, different personalities. But what was interesting was, one of the personalities had diabetes, the other personality did not. So when the diabetes personality came, the person had all the symptoms of diabetes and they would have all the problems which diabetics have. When he would switch to the other personality which didn't have diabetes, he could eat all the sugar he wanted with no reaction. Think about it. Your biology is exactly the same. The energy body is being flipped and you have diabetes or you don't have diabetes. You see why I'm giving you this example? It has nothing to do with your biology. It has everything to do with your energetics. All illnesses eventually find their roots in your energy body. If you can master your energy body, you can modify any illness, heal any illness, achieve anything beyond the capacity of your body biology. There are cases of people in desperation. A child's leg was stuck under the car. The mother lifts the entire car with one corner to free her child's leg. Afterwards, you call her, please lift again. She cannot. What happened? In the state of panic, she opened to a rush of energy, draw on the energy and achieve something impossible to do otherwise. Now, we have seen cases of this. We know of cases, many of you have heard perhaps stories of saints doing such miracles. It's not a miracle. It's a training you can do to acquire control over your life force and with that amplify as we boosted your your capacity of biological strength amplified. And there are people, and this is taught in some of the culinary training, there are people who will do this. An attacker is coming towards you to kill you with a sword. This man will point and concentrate on one of the energy centers, and the attacker falls unconscious. That's the power of energy flow, to heal or to kill. Okay? So who are you? I'm coming to the other next question. Yes, of course, you are the soul who incarnated. Yes, of course, you have taken a physical body, but you have an energy body. You have a pranamaya kosha equally, upon which your whole physical life depends. To become conscious. Nowhere in your education you were taught to become conscious of this. And yet, it's the single most important thing you could have learned if you had been told it was so important, right? But that's not it. They have a third body. Manomaya kosha is the mind body. And here's the crazy part of it. Your mind is a body. Isn't that strange, even as a vocabulary? No, this fellow must be crazy. What do you mean? Mind is product of brain. No, it's not. And the evidence also is very fascinating. And I'll give a few examples. There are people, who have what they call out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences. And the most common near-death experience takes place either during an accident or on the operating table. So there are cases where the surgery is going on, the person is under general anesthetic, and he finds himself floating out of his body, floats in the hall while the surgery is going on, sees things from above which could never be seen from below. For example, there's a cupboard and there's something kept on top of the cupboard which the doctors don't know, but because he is above, he sees. Then he wanders out through the wall, goes and sees something else happening. There's another surgery taking place somewhere else. A mother is giving birth to a child. Then he goes out and sees a shoe which is stuck on the third floor with a scratch on the outside. Now, all this is documented medically, by the way. And then he comes back and he describes all this, and they go and verify, yes, everything is correct. What does it mean? It means not just our vital body is separate, but our mind body is also separate, and we can actually experience a pure mental awareness separate from our body at a distance. And this, of course, we have heard stories in the yoga tradition, but is it accessible? Is it possible? So people who could do this, first, they don't know why they can do it. But if you apply, and some of them do, if you apply your mind, you can not only understand how you're doing it, but you can teach others to do it. So the US military, they discovered that the Soviet Union at that time in the 1970s was doing research in this. So they started their own research, and there's somebody called Ingo Swann, who was an expert in this capacity. They asked him to train others. So they developed a whole military program used by the US military even today, which is called remote viewing. And it's a method by which, and you can look it up, there are videos, training programs of this. It's a method by which you can project your consciousness to any location, anywhere in the universe practically, see what's happening there, describe and draw it accurately. So with this, they were spying on the Soviet Union. And afterwards, when the Soviet Union fell, they actually verified everything they had seen was correct. And I'll give one example, which is one of the most dramatic. So there was one particular facility in the Soviet Union, which was the most super secret, and the CIA could not get its people inside. So they told the remote viewer, can you see what's happening there? So he projects himself. Inside, he describes what appears to be a gigantic submarine. Except that there's no water. That whole hangar is several hundred meters away from the sea coast. And then he's asked to measure the size. He describes the size, it is too big to be a submarine. Nobody builds submarines which are so big. Then he describes how there are special missile silos which are slanted. Nobody ever does that. This is crazy. What's he talking about? But he's drawing accurate drawings. Then he's told, look at the same place 1 month from now. Look at the same place 2 months from now. And he's describing the future as the thing changes. And then suddenly he says, now I see a series of explosions and the entire thing flows out and goes into the sea. So with this method, they had a date on which this would happen. So they turned all their satellites and they watched by satellite the release of the world's largest submarine at that time, which Russia had built, and it had slanted silos, etc. Everything which was described was accurate. So in this mind projection, not only you can watch what is happening today, you can also see what is in the future and in the past. And this is fascinating. It totally blows your mind. But in fact, this is our experience. Have you ever had a premonition? You knew that something was going to happen and then it happened, right? We've all had it at some time. Why does it happen? Can you control it? Nobody ever told you this. But if you understand that this power is inherent in all of us, we can actually train it, we can develop it to be able to sense beforehand anything you want to know. Wouldn't you find it worth it to develop this capacity so that you can anticipate the future, your own day's outcome, and plan for it? Wouldn't it be worthwhile? Do you think it's worth it? To be able to read what is in someone else's mind? So this person, when he was doing surgery, he's floating above, he could read all the doctor's thoughts. So afterwards he wakes up and says, you were thinking about this, your wife is doing that at home, you were thinking about your child. And he says, how do you know? Because when you're out, you're in the mind body, your mind body can sense other people's thoughts. Wouldn't it be useful to read other people's thoughts? I'm asking from a very practical perspective. And if the ability is already there within you, but it's undeveloped, untrained, shouldn't you be training it? Shouldn't this be part of your educational system? And if it's not, you should ask yourself why. Because if you can do this, you can become master of your life. And those who control the system do not want you to be master of your life. They want you to be puppets, consumers, who will always be running on the spot to earn money and keep paying to survive and do nothing useful with your life. Never fulfill that for which you took birth, you as the conscious soul, isn't it? And the power of the mind body is such, it controls your life body. It directs your life energy. Remember what we did with the experiment? I asked you to visualize and feel. With your mind, you directed your life energy. It was as simple as that. And your life energy controlled your body. So if you're master of mind, you can become master of life and you can become master of your circumstances. But then I'll ask you the simple question, who is mastering your mind? Who is choosing to think? Who is making the choice? And so that reminds us once again that we are soul who has a mind, who has life force, who has body, right? But you're not conscious of your soul. Just as you're not conscious of your mind, you're not conscious of your life energy. You're only conscious of your biology, and that too half conscious or even 1/10 conscious. You're not even conscious of the digestion in your stomach. Can you feel your digestion happening? You see, you're not really conscious. So we are actually in an evolutionary journey in which we have become thinking beings, but we are not yet fully conscious even of our own thoughts. We're not conscious that in our thoughts there are layers and layers. Have you ever tried to sit down and quiet your mind? Well, you just did it earlier, but when you sit down and try to quiet your mind, do you notice you have a rush of more thoughts? Why is it this happens to everybody? You know what? They are not a rush of thoughts. They were thoughts which are already inside you. When you quieted your mind, you became conscious that there was this clutter of junk of thoughts happening. But they were always there. You were not conscious of it. Now you became conscious because you tried to quiet your surface part of the mind. So in fact, we notice your mind has layers, and on each of those layers you have thoughts happening. Has it ever happened to you? You wake up and there's a jingle from an advertisement which you saw and it's repeating itself in your mind? Has it happened to you? You try to quiet your mind and there's this music going on. Do you know why the advertisements repeat themselves so often? Because they want to consciously plant this jingle inside you so that it goes on automatically, so that when you go to buy something, that jingle behind inside your mind will make you buy that and not something else. You are being hacked and programmed and manipulated through these jingles, through layers of your mind where you're not conscious. Now become conscious. At least know that this is happening. And then you can choose whether you want to go back to sleep or you want to wake up and take charge of your life. Okay? But still, I've not come to the main point. You are physical body, life energy body, mind body, and then inside is the soul. But I said, AI can replicate anything that you do. What is it that you can do which AI cannot replicate? The pure creativity. Where does that come from? Because your mind is not the source of it. And this question now will answer, which will complete our discussion with the fifth layer, which is a part of you, which is you. Okay? So you've all written poems in school. When you write a poem, you'll find there are two types of poems. There are poems where you're struggling and trying to force fit some words and get a rhythm and rhyme. Somehow you construct it by putting pieces together. You've done that. And then sometimes it happens, suddenly the poem flows. And you're busy writing to keep up with the flow. You don't even know what you're writing. And when it's finished, you look and you say, wow, this is fantastic. I couldn't have written it. You've had that experience, all of you? Who wrote the poem? Because you didn't do it, it was obvious. Where did it come from? And always, subjectively, the experience you feel is, it came into me, it flowed through me, and you feel as if it's from above. Right? That's your subjective experience. Now we will confirm it. Yes, it's true. There is, in fact, a center above which has this capacity of extraordinary creativity. What you cannot do, or which you do with great struggle, it can do effortlessly in a flow like this to write that perfect poem. But that's a part of you. That's the source of your creativity. But you've never been trained to activate it. And this I will call, I'm going to generalize it. Forgive me for generalizing too much. I would say your spiritual potential. It's the beginning. It's not the real thing. There's much more beyond, but it's the beginning of it. But I'll explain what I mean by that. Now you notice your biology and body is linked with your life force. I said they're joined together, and your mind body on top of that are joined together. Three bodies are plugged into each other, and your soul is using this as a sheath. Okay. So naturally in this joining, there are special focal points of the join where the welding is taking place, where there's a transfer across bodies. Okay. So those centers, they are called centers of transfer, chakras. Because when you look at them with the subtle sight, you see them as a movement which is rotating. Okay, so its chakra means wheel. You notice there are many centers of consciousness within you, centers of awareness of different qualities and grades. We'll do another experiment. Now I want you to touch your elbow and shoulder. Between the two, close your eyes and feel which is closer to you. Closer to you. Touch and feel. Which feels closer? Okay, shoulder mostly. Between shoulder and elbow, shoulder feels closer. Okay. Between shoulder and temple, which feels closer to you? It all depends where you are located, but temple, everybody? Okay, between temple and forehead, which feels closer to you? Forehead, everybody? Which part of the forehead is closest to you? Touch everywhere. Did everyone come here? You found your center of forehead? Now, interesting, the closest part to you in your whole body is here. Interesting. Your mouth is below you, your hair is above you. You are here. Observe. Yeah, all of you felt it here? Anyone felt a different location? Sometimes people feel more in the chest, but that's rare. Okay? But you are here. Now, express to me by gesture. You want to say I. You're doing a mime on stage without words. You want to say I. How will you express I? What do you do?
Concentrate.
How do you say I with gesture? You say I. On your chest, you don't say I. Strange. It's a strange gesture, right? You don't say I, and yet you are here. But you say I here. What's the difference between this and this? Why do you put your hand here when you say I? Feel subjectively, find your answer now. I'm leading you to an experience which nobody has taught you this. Observing yourself. Yes, what is here? You feel life force here, okay. And what do you feel here? Ideas, okay. Anybody else? The center of your body, okay. Is it really center of your body? It feels more centered in the body. What about you? What do you say? Anybody? Yes? Okay. That's an idea. Perhaps you're programmed to think like this. But if you really get free of all program, observing subjectively, you feel, I am here. But this I is almost like a sentimental, devotional, emotional, pure sensation, whereas this I in the head is like my thinking center where I apply my will. I don't feel will here, I feel will here. Okay? So there are two different centers, two different sense of I. observe subjectively. Very interesting, but it's not all. You said body. Now I give you one more example. When you're on the top of a tall building, you look down and you feel the fear in your body. Where do you experience the fear? Stomach. It's almost like a stomach pulls you backward. That's your physical center. That's your body's fear, not emotional fear, body fear. So here are three centers. Mind center, life energy or emotional center here, actually life force, pure life force is lower. And then in the belly, in the abdomen, is the physical biology center. Now, if you're doing any martial arts, especially the Chinese martial arts or the Japanese martial arts, which are derived from India, by the way, all of them went from India too. They teach you to draw life force from below. So if you do a movement, you want to do a blow, you don't go like this, you don't hit with your arm, you feel here. You draw energy from here, and from here the movement goes, boom. So the punch of power is so much greater because you're drawing power from here, which is the center, by the way, of life force here and the pure body physical vitality here. So from the physical vitality you draw, and when you give the punch, that layer which you saw as a haze, that gets the full power. That's what breaks the brick, not your hand. But you draw life force because that's the center of life force. So you notice in your body there are many centers. And the lower centers are closer to the physical, the higher centers are closer to the mind. But remember, your intuition was not mind. You felt it from above you. So there is a center above head. We call it the Sahasrara, 1,000-petaled lotus, because it actually looks like that when you see to the subtle side. There's an intense brightness above the head in the subtle body. And it is here that your creativity is centered, your intuition is centered. When you don't know what to do, you make your mind quiet. Instead of thinking harder, you make your mind quiet and turn your mind upward and wait to receive knowledge from here, and the knowledge already exists. And you can draw any knowledge. Now, it's a skill you have to develop. It's a skill totally untrained. Imagine if a child lived the whole life lying down in your cradle, never developing the strength of your legs and hands. You'd still have the full adult body, but you wouldn't be able to stand and walk. Isn't it? This is how we are today with capacities of the higher part of us. We are like children, undeveloped in our awareness of the life force, in our power of the mind, and in our power above head of the intuition and the spiritual potential. And we are totally unaware of our soul, although we feel subtle suggestions from there. You are like the proverbial iceberg. 1/10 floating on top, 9/10 is hidden below. But your full potential is in all these layers. Does that make sense? Do you understand why this is so important and why we come back to the question, who are you truly? You are all this. This extraordinary creative potential here which no AI can ever create. And when you learn to draw from it, you will be one of the greatest creators in the world. You have the power of your intellect and your intelligence and power of thought by which you can do anything but which is undeveloped and untapped. Nothing in your education has really helped you train and develop this. You can't even make your mind silent when you choose to. Isn't that sad? To be able to make your mind silent at will would show that you have control of your mind. That means you can direct your thoughts the way you want, and you can open to the intuition and draw on it at will and live from it directly. Okay? So, and you have this tremendous vitality with which you can achieve anything. Lift heavy stones, which are biologically impossible. Break stones, which is biologically impossible, but it is also lying untapped. And then you have your whole biology, which can be free of all disease if you reshape your energy body. You can make the shape of your body whatever you choose to be. And I've seen this, my teacher, when he was told by the doctors, you have to reduce your weight. He did it just by willing on the body. He would check the weight every week, and we saw the weight come down and then stabilize, and he didn't change anything else in the food. The only thing, as a way of consciously reminding himself, from a bowl of rice, he would take out a tiny portion. And that's not enough to change your weight. But it was the idea, the mind directing life force, which is directing biology, and he reshaped his biology. Sri Aurobindo describes how by putting a will on the body, he changed the shape of his body and overcame illnesses which were hereditary. This is the potential of your body. Your body can be made as beautiful, as supple, as strong, as powerful, as elegant that you choose to, in principle, if you can become conscious in these layers. And all of these are the vehicles through which you, the person who chose to take birth, can now fulfill the reason why you took birth. What that reason is, you may not be able to articulate in thought because it is not a thinking mind which shows, but you will feel. And when you fulfill yourself, you will look back at your life and say, ah, yes, I did what I came to choose, what I came to do. You will experience growth, you will experience fulfillment, you will create extraordinary things in the world which were unimaginable by others, and that will be uniquely yours. Okay, so we come back to the two questions. Who are you truly? Why did you come on earth? Why are you here? And for that, if you become conscious of all this, the direction and fulfillment of your life is sure, whatever it may be. So now I'm inviting you to break out of the conventional way of thinking about your life and start thinking from this inside out perspective, and start taking small steps to become more and more conscious of yourself, to take charge of your life and become master of yourself and your circumstances. And this would be the way which we will call the yogic life. Yoga is not postures, it's about self-mastery and self-fulfillment and self-realization, realizing your potential. Okay, so I'm going to pause with this. It's a kind of big framework I've given you, but I hope it has been also very practical and application oriented. It's very important that you should be convinced, ah, yes, this makes sense, this is accessible. And then it's your choice whether you choose to pursue or not. Okay, any questions? Yes, let's start with you.
Sir, two questions are there.
Yes.
So first of all, you said that the soul choose fully here. But what I have heard or what we have read that soul is nirvika. It does not choose. It is
Okay.
not dressed up. So how do you distinction between you, not as an ego, you and the soul? And so next question is, how does the energy from the chakras rise? Does it rise from the Mooladhara to above, or like you saw in the temple, that it comes from Sahasrara to the downward?
Okay, so these are all theoretical questions, and none of these correspond to any experience you've had. Okay, it's just things you have read. Okay, but I'm still pointing out, be very careful because we read many things, and sometimes what we read is contradictory. The question I would ask simply, is it true? Maybe it's partially true, maybe the other is partially true. What's true finally you will have to verify with your experience. Okay, but to come back to your question, you can draw power, energy, or consciousness or capacities from any of the centers. All of them. It's not just Mooladhara or Sahasrara. It is all centers. Each has its unique, distinctive capacity. This is your center of mind and willpower. If you concentrate here, your willpower will amplify. That's not coming from above or below. Okay. Similarly, in the heart center, it's a different experience. So each center has its distinctive characteristic that you can activate, and when all are activated, then you're fully activated as a person in your potential. Okay. Coming to your first question, you have read somebody said soul doesn't choose. Did he experience his soul? Probably not. The experience, when you remember and you become conscious of your own soul, you will experience. I remember I was so enthusiastic to take birth. I chose a line of experience. But I'm coming back to why they say no choice. Because in the soul consciousness, it is not a choice in the way your mind makes a choice. The soul consciousness is totally free. So the choice is not something you have to force. It happens spontaneously. You look and say, oh wow, this is what I want. The spontaneity of the choice is felt by many as a choicelessness. And that's why some people say, oh, there's no real choice. No, it is a choice because it is an individual. And each soul has chosen differently in a different line. But it's a spontaneous thing. Okay, your question.
Sir, I was asking the concept of Punarjanma.
Yes.
In Buddhism, it's not there.
Yes.
And
Now, Buddhism has reincarnation, yes.
different kind of like concept that there is a flow of waves.
Okay.
Waves are coming and going.
Okay.
But it is not the same
Yes.
soul. There is no soul that will come out of the body.
And so, Buddhism has thrown out God and soul. But they still have reincarnation. But then what is incarnating if there's no soul? So then they have to make up a whole thing around waves and things. But end of the day, you must understand why. Why do they do this? Because the nature of the practice of what the Buddha taught. See, Buddha didn't say there's no God. He was asked, somebody asked him, is there God? And he kept quiet. He kept silent. He refused to answer. Why? Because his mission was different. His mission was to find the shortest way out of suffering. And what's the shortest way out of suffering? Get out of the whole creation. God or not or soul doesn't matter. Get out. For that you don't need God. So if he said, yes, there is God, then again the whole question would be, then why are we here? And he's avoiding that question. So you must understand the objective is different. But in the Vedic tradition, which is the basis for the Indian traditions, the idea was, you are here, you are children of immortality, you have consciously chosen to enter life to realize this beauty and perfection and divine potential in the world. So there obviously you are the soul and there is a divine potential, there is this divine consciousness. So the emphasis is different because the goal is totally different. So when people say, oh, all religions are the same, no, it's not true. They have different goals, they have different methodologies, different priorities. And even if they use the word God, they mean completely different things. If you go to the Judeo-Christian concept of God, which is what you see in the three Abrahamic religions, God is this fellow who's like pretty much a tyrant who creates the world and then goes to sleep and the world runs like a clock. So modern science derived from Christian teachings in Europe largely took that idea. They threw out God, but they kept the world working like a machine. So you have to create this thing called chance. Oh, there's no chance. There's only ignorance. When you don't know, you say there is chance. Actually, there's a huge complexity, huge number of influences working. More than you can imagine, more than you can conceive of. Therefore, you say, I can't manage to manage so much data. So you call it chance. But the reality is something so much larger. And the Indian concept is the divine and the world are not separate. The divine is one with the world in the world itself. So you must understand these are very serious distinctions across these different traditions. Finally, what matters is what is true. And if it's true, there are three ways to assess what is true. There are three tests. First, your direct experience. Let's say you don't have the direct experience yet. Then you have something which we will call an intuition. Like I asked you, do you feel this life is by chance or there is something to be realized? And that was an intuition. Deep within you, you know. And the third is, does it make sense? Because finally it has to have logical sense also. So if God actually creates the world and then goes to sleep and allows you to suffer, then it doesn't quite mean anything. It doesn't make rational sense. And if he's going to punish you for reasons, all these are often mixtures of many belief systems. They're aggregated around the religious belief, and it's used as a way to control people. So the church, for example, would say that if you pay us money, then you will get a ticket to heaven. So it's a way of mind control, basically. And that's what many of the religions reduced to. In Buddhism, the idea is to become master of mind, but because they've thrown out soul and God, there's no point to the whole thing. So you get out of it. This also came as a strong influence in the Indian tradition through Buddhism, in the modern Vedanta, which says the world is illusory. No, it's not illusory. It's very real. But the appearance that you see is unreal. Like this you say is white wood. No, it's not. It's molecules. No, it's not. It's atoms. No, it's not atoms. It's energy. No, it's not energy. It's consciousness flowing as energy. So the underlying reality is different from the appearance, which is illusory. So if you really want to, I'm not going into details, just to give you an idea that finally what matters, does it align with logic, intuition, and experience? And the beauty of the Indian yoga tradition, like modern science, is built purely on experience and the intuition. And therefore, it doesn't tell you you must believe this. It says, here are methods by which you can experience, verify for yourself, and attain whatever it is. And then you verify, isn't it? It's very scientific. Yes.
I have four questions. One is, I have not been outside India, but why only Indians were able to tap into all these things?
Okay. So the question is, why is it only Indians were able to tap into this knowledge? No, it's not true. In every tradition, there were people who had access to this kind of knowledge. But they were rare and exceptional. Sometimes they were made medicine men. Sometimes they were treated as spiritual or saints, etc. Sometimes they were killed because they had something exceptional. India was the only space in the world where this was the obsession for the civilization. Can we all realize this spiritual potential that we have, really find ourselves and develop our full inner potential, and through that master our life? This prioritization of the spiritual was unique to India as a civilization. But in all other cultures and civilizations, there were individuals who had it, but the culture did not have it as a priority. That's the difference. So when you see the best of those traditions, you'll find parallels. But the traditions themselves have a different focus. That's why the future of the world depends on India's awakening. If in India the spiritual knowledge can be revived, it will have an enormous impact on the future of humanity. This was the point Sri Aurobindo made 100 years ago, that humanity has to choose. Will it follow the Western paradigm, which has reduced everything to materialistic and chance-based reductionist beliefs? Or will it follow a direct experience of the deeper truths of the spirit and by it master life and achieve perfection in life? And that would be the Eastern or the Indian approach. That choice is what weighs before us. And it's critical for India to find this. And I'm going to take a step further. When Sri Aurobindo, as you know, worked for India's freedom, he was the first to demand full freedom for India. By the way, Gandhi did not. Gandhi did not even ask for freedom for India. He asked for British to rule India better. It's only at the end, when the British were already stuck in the Second World War, he started his quit India, when already they were about to leave and they were discussing how they could leave. So I'm sorry, Gandhi is projected in a very different way in your textbooks. It is not at all what he asked for. He demanded rather for better rule. Okay? And that came much later, and he's given a lot of credit. It's not true. Sri Aurobindo was the first to demand full freedom, and he was called an extremist for asking for full freedom. And to this day, there are people in the West who will call him an extremist and even a terrorist, by the way, which is not the case. So when Sri Aurobindo asked for full freedom, the reason he gave, he didn't say we want full freedom because you're bad rulers or good rulers or whatever. He said, India has a role to fulfill in the world upon which the future of humanity depends. In order to be able to fulfill that role, India must first find her soul. Civilizational, individual, collective. Okay? Find your soul. Find your spirit. In order to find your soul, she must be free. That's why we are fighting for freedom. Do you understand the thinking? Now, what happened in 1947 was only a political freedom. It was not a cultural freedom. It was not an economic freedom. It was not even a mental freedom of thought. We were replicating and imitating all the things which the British brought. To this day, our educational system is based on what they did. Isn't it? To this day, the history we are taught is what the British taught us in order to enslave your minds. We never even got intellectual freedom. Even today, you go to a philosophy class, they are busy teaching you about Western philosophers. They tell you nothing about Indian philosophers. Why? You have not yet won your intellectual freedom. And, of course, the spiritual freedom. So from 1947 onwards, post-political freedom is when you are still struggling to find your cultural individuality, your intellectual freedom, and your spiritual freedom. And that's what I'm talking about here. Who are you truly? Why are you here? Become conscious. Begin to take charge. And this will be the journey of the rest of your life. Doesn't matter how long it takes. But with each step of your journey, you will gain greater mastery, greater fulfillment of your life, greater joy in everything you do, and greater creativity, which no AI can ever match. Okay? So, how much time do we have? Do we have time for more questions? Okay. So, give me an idea of how much time. Okay. So, we'll take more questions. I'm going to give a chance to others. Yes, please.
Sir, sometimes I feel that if I went somewhere, but in the reality, I went first time, but I feel that if I went earlier as well, and if I am talking to someone, sometimes feel like we talked before as well.
Yes, yes. Sometimes you're feeling as if this has happened before. They call it déjà vu. Okay? Why does it happen? Has it ever happened also you saw something in a dream just before you woke up and then it happened in the day? Now I'll explain to you how it happens. It's very interesting. And you must understand this physical world, as we have a physical body, and then we have other bodies or other gradations. For each of these, there's an entire world. You can go out of your physical body in your vital body and experience the vital worlds like this. And they can be very beautiful, very dark, very ugly, or very beautiful. And these are what many religions describe as heavens and hells. But there are worlds in the vital, and then there are mental worlds, and then there are spiritual worlds. So there's a whole range of worlds. When we go to sleep, a part of our consciousness separates from the body, wanders off, and then comes back. So all that you have wandered off, you don't remember mostly. As you come back, the last part is what you remember. And as you come closer to the physical domain, you already see things happening there which are tendencies which are going to happen of what is going to happen in the physical world. So the last dream that you had is often the closest layer to the physical, and therefore is most likely to happen. But still in the domain of tendencies of forces. If you had a dream there's going to be an accident, you can actually intervene and prevent the accident. It's interesting. So the deja vu is something glimpsed at the moment before you woke up, but which you forgot. But when the thing started happening, something within you said, yes, I've seen this before. That's what it is. And if you catch that moment, you'll notice the memory is at a deep layer within you. And as you try to remember it more, it's as if you know you can remember more, and then suddenly you lose it and it fades out. It's like a hole opened into a deeper layer and then the hole closed again. But by training, you can consciously open that passage and recall everything and know what is going to happen and change what is going to happen. Okay, this is your capacity. This is your question.
Can you explain a bit better how to access this divine creativity?
Okay.
And when I get there, do I have my own, can I decide to write music even though this is not my talent that I haven't practiced in past months?
Okay. So how do you access this divine creativity? And the second part of the question is, can you do something you've never trained for? The answer to that is yes. And this is actually possible. And we have seen people, and this is actually quite amazing to see when it happens. People who had practically no training of any kind, when they tap into this layer of consciousness and the thing begins to flow, they are able to do those things with almost like a perfection. And then when the flow cuts, suddenly they fall back into their normal state and they cannot manage it anymore. But with training, you learn to maintain the flow. But second part, which is important, your biology is not receiving the flow fully. For example, if I receive the piano music, my fingers are stiff. I'm struggling to keep up with what is flowing. But if I trained my fingers, then the flow would be much more perfect in its implementation. But still, I know what I need to express and I'm struggling to keep up. Okay, I'll share with you because I played with this a little bit. The first time that I played on the keyboard, it was the first time literally. And I tuned in like this and the music was coming. And I was trying to figure out, that note, is it 2 notes higher? Or my mind was busy interpreting which note it corresponds to. And I was playing with no training of fingers. And I played for about 5 or 10 minutes. And it was too exhausting because my mind was struggling to translate. Then I stopped. And there was a lady who came in at that time. I was doing it in the ashram's library. The lady who came in and said, "What was that music you played?" I said, "It just came in." 10 years later, she told me again, "That music you played at that time, it was the most beautiful music that I have ever heard in my life." I don't remember what it was. But in that state, I was able to hold the flow and translate. But there are people where the body is much more developed and conscious. You don't need to struggle. And it flows and they can just play or they can draw beautifully and all the lines are perfect in their curve. They lose the state, they take a pencil and the lines are jagged, not curved, etc. So there is a preparation for access, but then there is a training for the smoothness of the flow in the other parts to make them receptive. Now the question, how do you train it? I'll give this a little more attention because it's going to be important for all of us. Sri Aurobindo has an entire chapter on this topic of how to open to the intuition and how to develop the intuition in his book, The Synthesis of Yoga. Now, I'm going to state this book. Not all of you may choose to read it, but those of you who choose to, and it's a very fat book, where he actually describes all of the subtle internal psychological processes by which we can gain not only total self-mastery, but mastery of all the higher domains of our spiritual potential. Okay? But it's written in a style which is somewhat complex for many because we are today used to very short, simple sentences, and there the structure is more complex because the knowledge is more rich and complex. But there's a whole chapter which is called Intuitive Mind. There he discusses 4 practices which will assist in opening to the higher intuition. Now you notice, as I said, the intuition is already there. And what is missing is the link from there to this part which is expressing. Okay? And especially because your mind in all its layers, remember mind is not one layer, it has many layers. They're all in agitation of thoughts, emotions, mechanical jiggles, and the advertisements you've been watching, they're all going on at the same time, the clutter of noise. In that noise, that thing which is higher above is not heard, is not received. Even if it comes through, it's lost in the chaos of your mind. So the first step to open to intuition is to be able to make your mind silent. Now there's a first layer of silence when you start becoming a little quiet and you hear the rest of the noise. Layer by layer now make all of your mind silent. So initially it will take you a little while. But there are methods to make the mind silent to help ease. But finally the method is simply this: just become quiet and stop the thought as they come. That's it. There's a method which is more direct, which is more easy, which is to open above the head and draw down the peace from above, and it makes the mind silent effortlessly. If some of you are interested in exploring this, you can see there's a guided meditation which I have put online on my YouTube channel, which is called Integral Studies. And there you look for the phrase guided meditation for descent of peace. And there's a whole exercise which is given for this descent of peace. The result of that will be your mind will be totally silent. Now you have to train your mind to be silent at will and hold it as long as you choose, during which time you will receive the higher intuition. So if you can't hold it, then as soon as you start the intuition, as the intuition flows, your mind will jump up and start agitated excitation. So you have to learn to hold it. So this is your first training. The second training which Sri Aurobindo recommends is to shift the focus of your awareness inward. Now remember what we did earlier when I said, can you feel inside you what you know, whether you're here by chance or there's a meaning? You felt this something shifting deeper within. Similarly, in the mind, there's a surface activity and there's a deeper awareness. You shift the center inward of your whole being. So it's as if you come closer to your soul's center. Shift inward, and you'll feel it subjectively as if you're more close to you, to the true I within. This practice, again, will bring you closer to the part where the intuition is received more directly. It's received more directly inside rather than outside, and from inside out it flows. So this is the second practice. The third practice is again fascinating. You shift the center of thought, which is normally in the head, to above head. Now I'm going to ask you to do this as an experiment. It's quite interesting to do. So you noticed your thinking was here, right? You all felt that. Now I want you to become aware of your thinking center here. Just hold this awareness. And then slowly shift the center of thinking. Literally shift your center of I above to this point just above the head. And if it helps you, close your eyes and shift your center there. Notice what happens when you shift above the head. Notice how the quality of your thought changes. Perhaps it becomes more clear, more wide, more free, more supple, more light. Or as if you feel your thought awareness is more light or more wide. Notice this simply. And now hold your station above head, keep the center above head, and slowly let your eyes open. And keep the center above head with eyes open. And if it falls back, just shift it back up. But stay with eyes open with the center above head. And notice the state of your mind. You can do it? You could all do it? Staying here. You notice your mind is naturally more quiet, more relaxed, more free, more wide. Can you feel the difference? When you sit for studying, shift the center and study from here. You'll find with no effort of strain of thought, you'll simply grasp the ideas and retain them profoundly. Your comprehension will become larger and wider and freer. A text that you would take 1 hour to study, you will achieve in 20 minutes and with better retention just by this shift. Only problem is the moment you start doing by habit, you will tend to fall back and your mental activity will tend to start shift back again. Build a new habit to think from here. Second thing you'll notice when you're thinking from here, your mind is freer, lighter, and clearer, also wider. So you can have chunks of thought which are large compared to when you're inside the brain, your thoughts are narrow. Third thing you'll notice, you can study much longer. You don't have brain fatigue. So for example, if you have studied for exams and you've spent last 2 hours, now your mind is tired, heavy, you can't think anymore. Shift the center above head, you'll find, now I'm clear. I can do whatever I want. The heaviness of the brain is bypassed by the shifting above. Many interesting things. But you've noticed this already, what a difference it made to you. And we did it, what? Half a minute, not more. But develop now. You can, and I'm making you do this so that you realize how easy it is to begin. Now the question is, will you pursue it? And if you find it worth it to become master of your thoughts and to become master of your life, you will pursue it. Okay? Spend time every day, give it time. Because what you will achieve by this will change your entire life. You will easily rise to become one of the most creative, the most capable people in the world. And it doesn't matter what you do. You don't have to become like Elon Musk, who made extraordinary things. But he has all these capacities. He has all 4 capacities, well integrated. That's what makes him so effective. You don't have to do that. Maybe I will do my greatness in my little field which nobody else will see. It doesn't matter. But what you will do will be extraordinary. It will be beautiful. It will be fulfilling for yourself, for why you chose to take birth. So the third practice is to shift the center. And now learn to live from here. When you're walking, when you're jogging, when you're reading, when you're thinking, when you're conversing, make it a practice to shift here so that more and more your thought is centered above head. And then from here, when you open, it will be easier to receive the intuition. So if you've done the first 2 steps, quieting the mind, shifting the center inward, and then shifting the center above, which will be third step, then you'll find at any point you can simply turn up, choose literally to feel and draw from above the intuition, and you'll have the insight. You will read something, and if you're here in a quiet state of mind, as you read, you'll say, yes, but this part is true, that part is not so true, here are the exceptions, but there's so much more which is not mentioned here. Your mind will literally see knowledge, which will be more than what you're reading. Okay? And that's when people say, this fellow has genius potential. Now, I want to restate this in other words. What is genius? Genius is the activation of this higher faculty which is present in all of us. That's what makes you genius. You drop from there into normal thinking of intellect, that's your normal intelligence. Or developed or less developed, doesn't matter. But when you do this 3-step process, there's a 4th step I've not mentioned. At that point, you activate your genius potential. Now, still there's the problem, like I said, for playing music, your biology has to keep up with what comes. So for that, you need to purify your brain channels. Your brain channels and biological energy flows in the brain and nervous system are clogged by energy which is stagnating. Okay? When you jog, when you run, you feel energy flowing because you've broken the stagnation. The same happens in your thinking power, in the life force of your brain and nervous system. So for that, there's a purification technique which perhaps Malika ji will teach you if you ask her. It's called Nadi Shuddhi, alternate nostril breathing, where you take air through one and you literally take it through the brain and out through the other. And what happens, it's not physical air you're taking life force which flows through. If you have a pipe which is clogged, you put a little bit of water and shake it and the water flushes out. Something like that happens in your brain. You do Nadi Shuddhi every day and I assure you, your IQ will go up 10 points. You shift the center of thought above head, your IQ will go up another 10 or 20 points. Literally. There's no exaggeration. By such practice, I avoid giving my experiences too much because it seems a little... Because my mother had taught me these things while I was a child and I was putting this into practice. At the age of about 17 or 16, I did an IQ test and I easily hit the first time 145. I did a second test, I hit 150. Not difficult. They call it genius potential. Not difficult. All of us have it. It's unactivated. We are like children who lay in the crib all of our life. We never activated, we never worked this power. Start working on it. And I'm assuring you, you start today. Within a few months, your power of thought will amplify so much, you will feel the difference. Your capacity to do what you want and your willpower will amplify so much, you will have the joy, at last I'm beginning to live my life. And with this activation of the creativity, you will do such wonderful things. You will be satisfied. You won't care what others think. That doesn't matter finally, isn't it? So I've described to you the three things. There's a fourth thing. It's a little more complex, but I'll share it anyway. All the faculties of your intelligence are reductions from your intuition's faculties. Okay? Your real power is up here. Your intelligence as embedded in the brain is a reduced capacity of that. So what happens as you begin to activate this higher faculty, your lower faculties now begin to rise up and plug into their origin. And I'll give an example. Your memory. You know how it works? You remember something. Have you noticed how your memory works? It's quite fascinating. I'll ask you now to remember which was the first time that you went to the beach. Can you recall the memory? Or you went to the top of a mountain? Yeah? You got your memory immediately? But if I ask the same question to Facebook or Google, which has all the photographs from your childhood, let's say, what will the computer do? It will go one by one across every single image and compare which is so earlier, which is earlier, which is earlier. And at the end of a very long process, this is the earliest that I can find. Right? Did you do that? Did you go through all the memories of your life? No. What did you do? Observe. Very interesting. You said, I want to know, and your mind turned inward. Okay? And the memory came forward. Right? That's all that happened. Who within you had access to all your memories and could give you the memory that you were asking for? That's what happened, right? So Sri Aurobindo explains this. There is actually a deeper mind with a deeper power of memory in which nothing is ever forgotten. Now, under hypnosis, I could ask you, first if I ask you this question, since you woke up this morning, how many times did you blink your eyes? What a crazy question, you didn't even notice. But under hypnosis, if I ask you how many times did you blink your eyes, you'll say exactly 1256 or whatever the number is. Why? Because the inner memory has registered every single thing, even which you have not noticed. The inner memory is automatically perfect. It is conscious of you while you are not conscious of it. So when you turn to remember my childhood memory, you turned, I want to know this. It knew what you want. It had full access to all memory. It pushed forward the memory you needed. That's how memory works. Do you understand? We are tapping into an automatic memory which is perfect in itself. What is missing is the gap between your surface need to know and the inner layer of memory. That gap, when it's blocked, you don't remember. And so someone says, but at that time we also ate that food. Yes, now I remember. Why? Because here it was blocked. The food tapped into a different entry point which triggered this memory. You see? So the reality is all memory is already present, but it is hidden. So in the same way, in the intuitive consciousness, there is a memory which is much more complete, and that memory has access to everything that has happened, everything that is known. There's a famous Upanishad in India where this son of a rishi has gone for training, and in those days the Indian training was far more rigorous than today. And he comes back with a mastery of 64 arts. So young man reaches his father. Father Rishi says, well, what have you learned? I have mastered 64 arts. And the father says, but did they teach you that by knowing which everything is known? Is there such a thing? Imagine if there was something you could know, by knowing it, everything would be known. Would it be worth it for your time to spend? Actually, this exists in this intuitive part. And in the memory of the intuitive part, all knowledge is available. Of course, as I said, there are layers there and higher layers. But when you tap into this, literally you will feel, yes, I already know this. So what happens now in the fourth method for training intuition? Every time you read something, every time you learn something, instead of saying, I must remember this, instead of trying to remember from outside in, you ask yourself, where within me is it that I already know it? Interesting idea. Okay. As I'm describing all this to you, everything we've discussed since morning, look back within you and you'll say, of course it's obvious. Something within me already knew it, right? So when you read something new, yes, of course, this is familiar. Where within me do I already know it? And you tap into that, you become aware. Yes, here I know already. So it's literally plugging in your current mind operations into the deeper intuitive memory operations. Now what happens? Once this link forms, you're forming a new link, but the knowledge is already there. I want to know this. Instead of trying to look outside for information, I will say, where within me do I know this? And you tap into the knowledge. Ah, yes, this is what it is. Or you're reading something and a tiny piece triggers the full memory from above. So in this way, your intellectual powers of memory, of intelligence, of observation, comparison, differentiation, inference, etc., all these faculties plug into the higher intuitive equivalent, which are the free power. And that's when you have access to all knowledge. But it happens in a graded way. With that, already you begin to have insights and powerful insights. You will read things and you'll say, ah, yes, but there is so much more which is implicit. Things like that. So here are the 4 stages or 4 practices through which you can develop full access to your intuitive potential and literally begin to live from it. Now you notice everything I've described is fully accessible to you. It's only a question of giving it time, a little bit of effort. Okay, does that satisfy? You already spoke.
So, since we're discussing about accessibility, most separate direction,
Yes.
I'm concerned that, like humanity, in the earlier civilization,
It's okay, I can hear you.
so,
Yes.
so basically, what humanity did in the 19th century is that they discovered industrialization policy.
Yes.
So that way to grow and to kind of grow economic person. That has led to the kind of imbalance in the ecological system, and
Yes.
this kind of in a way degrading. So I'm worried, would this technique would lead to such consequences?
Yes. So the point is this. One of the results of industrialization was the destruction of nature. Was it necessary? India had the most industrialized civilization in recent history of 5,000 years. The most industrialized. One single city of Surat was producing more textiles for export alone than the biggest companies in Europe at that time. And the textile quality was superior substance, superior colors. The French king at one point banned ordinary people from buying Indian textiles because they were of such high grade and there was a shortage. In the Roman Empire, there was an outflow of funds going to India because everybody was buying Indian textiles, Indian jewelries, Indian produce, which were of superior grade, and they had a balance of payment crisis. So they had a Senate emergency meeting in which they banned products from India to protect their industries, etc. Just to tell you, and that was just one city, Surat. Nowhere was there ever pollution. Nowhere did we poison our rivers or our wells because we held responsibility for the well and the rivers. When did this change? When industrialization became cut off from your common sense, your soul's knowledge of oneness with nature, and your sense of community. When this is forgotten and you become self-centered, where you say, I don't care if everybody dies just because momentarily I will do it in a way that suits me, that is a stupidity, because nobody dies alone. Eventually we are all connected. It comes back to you. I give an example. In Punjab, the government banned the throwing of industrial waste into the river, obviously, because you were poisoning. So what did the people do? They dug pits like a well and pumped the industrial waste into the ground, and it went into the groundwater. The result is everywhere groundwater is contaminated with the worst poisonous chemicals, which makes Punjab the national capital and even the global capital for cancer. Why? Because of human stupidity. Now, if you had processed that waste, we could have had zero toxicity in the world. It's a question of responsibility only. Some of it is now driven because of questions of cost, because processing involves cost. But then, simple question I would ask. In the traditional system that we had, we did not have toxic waste. Why? Because the entire production cycle was organic. From the point we broke away into inorganic chemicals, which now cannot be reabsorbed into nature without poisoning it, we had a responsibility to convert it back to something safe before discharging into nature. Since we broke away from the cycle of nature, we now had to correct for that, which we did not do. Again, from lack of common sense or responsibility. But what we did before, all of our colors, the textiles had superior colors, which were more lasting than even today's, were taken from plants. So you could literally throw it out and it was still organic, it was reabsorbed and recycled within nature itself. No poisoning ever took place. When you create a chemical which poisons nature, you've created artificially, it's your responsibility. So finally, you becoming conscious will actually make you more responsible and you will prevent this kind of stupidity. When you're sleeping and you're a puppet and you're hacked by the powers that be and you're thinking of short-term personal interest, that's when you destroy your environment. This is the way we have to wake up. There is no other way. Either wake up or perish. This is the option before humanity. One last question from someone from the back who has not. Okay. Okay, I'll come back to you. Yes.
Namaste, my name is Parth. I am a poet and a lyricist by profession. So whatever you say is, I can relate to it.
Yes.
I have felt sometimes that I haven't written it.
Yes.
Whether it is written beautifully or not, but I felt sometimes.
Yes.
Now coming to impulsiveness, I really don't know how to ask you.
Doesn't
this,
matter.
but,
Say it.
I'm not buying this because impulsiveness is very bad, what you
Yes.
have said. While I have impulse, so काफी बार ऐसा हुआ है.
Yes.
हिंदी में-
हाँ, हिंदी में.
Yeah. काफी बार ऐसा हुआ है कि impulse सही हुआ है.
Yes.
Like 90% of the
Okay.
time. मुझे ऐसा लगा है.
Okay.
Because जब वो आया था तब तक मुझे वो भी पता है कि ये
Yes.
impulse है. मैं डिसीजन ले रहा हूँ मेरे impulsiveness के
Yes.
वजह से है. So I don't know.
Okay. So his point is 90% of his impulses have been right. So he's not sure whether what I said impulsiveness is slavery or not. So the question is this. First, understand the point I was making. Any impulse, whether right or wrong, is not your choice. It's happening. You are led. You are like a dog around whom a leash has been pulled and you've gone in that direction. If it was good, you're lucky. When it's bad, well, you suffer. But you're still not master of yourself. Did you choose? No. You were led by a slavery to the impulse. That was my point. Good or bad, right or wrong is second. Okay? But the point though, he says, when he follows his impulse, often he is right. Yes, it can be if the impulse comes from a source which is deeper inside. When the soul's influence guides the impulse, then it will lead you in the right direction. The problem is, can you make out the difference when it is right and when it is wrong? You cannot. And as long as you cannot, it's dangerous. So I will say, yes, learn to separate the quality of the impulse. The impulse that comes from the soul, which is not really a compelling impulse mechanically, it has a clarity, it has a knowledge, it has an insight, it has a particular vibration. You'll say, this feels true. And there's another type of impulse which is purely desire driven. You can say, this is confused. It feels like I can't rely on it. Learn to distinguish. Then it is no more impulse. Then it is guidance from the soul or a suggestion from the soul which leads you. And you'll learn to distinguish between the two. But always when there is impulse which pushes you in spite of yourself, that is slavery. Okay? And desire impulse is the worst form of slavery.
So what is samadhi and what happens to the three courses during samadhi?
Why do you ask?
I just wanted to
Why is this important for you?
if we get into yoga, then samadhi is one of the
Okay. So his question is, what is samadhi and what happens to the three koshas when you're in samadhi? So I said, if you have not experienced samadhi, why is this question coming up? So his worry is, if I take up yoga, I will reach samadhi eventually, then what will happen to them? Okay, good point. Then it's valid. Okay. So simple answer this. What is samadhi truly? Okay, the problem is we have been given a story that samadhi is a state where you will be totally lost, you will not know the world, and you will come back and you won't even remember the bliss which you had in samadhi. So what's the point of it? Right? But that is only a preliminary and partial experience. The reality is, if you follow this process of awakening and becoming conscious and integrating the whole of you around your true center, As you grow in this capacity of higher knowledge and higher access, you will experience states which you might call samadhi of various degrees and kinds, but it will never be disconnected from your life. The result is that knowledge, that intuitive flow, that inspiration, that bliss which you will reach. All of these will be available to you in your active life and will make your life perfect and make your life divine. That is the goal of our life. The goal is not to withdraw into something and come back with no memory. The goal is to realize it here and make your life divine. This samadhi is worth achieving because you will live constantly in the awareness of this extraordinary beauty and bliss, and everything will be an expression of that joy and bliss and perfection and streaming intuition and knowledge. And this is worth achieving, isn't it? Okay. Okay. Okay.
Is it soul within the body or body in the soul? Because I have read in some text, probably in Bhagavad Gita, correct me if I'm wrong, that soul is the very tiniest particle of entity.
Angushta matra.
Yeah.
It's like a thumb-sized pea.
So I'm confused.
Okay. So, first of all, why does it matter?
I'm just curious.
Okay, curiosity. Fine. So sometimes if you have an experience, then I would have related to the experience. So what is our experience as regards our life energy? You saw this layer around, you felt it. It is actually extending outside your physical body, isn't it? I'm sorry, I'm going to make you another demonstration. Would you like to come here?
What about the other 30% who
Okay.
aren't able to see that?
Now I'm going to just sorry, what was that?
Who aren't able to see that aura? The 70% people able.
Well, you could just stay a little longer, you will feel it. So you do it amongst yourselves. It's easy. It takes a few seconds. Do it with a white background. It's easier to see. Now I want you to close your eyes. What happened? What happened? No, what did you feel? What did you feel? Suddenly you went like this.
No, I just sensed that. So
Exactly. He sensed it. I brought my hand approaching his face. He sensed it. And there was a shock. Why? That means he is not body. He who sensed it is extending beyond body. Now you notice. Try to feel. Right now my hand is outside. Okay. Now there's a point where now it's suddenly too personal. It's inside your space, right? Here. Somewhere here it goes out. Now it's outside you. Somewhere here it starts entering. Now it's too much inside. Now you'll see he's leaning back. What is this boundary here about this much for you? That's your personal space, we call it. If somebody comes and sits and you don't like their vibe and they're too close, you move away. It's as if they've got into you somehow, right? So, coming back to the question, your subtle body, Sukshma Sharira, you're made of the vital body and mental body is extending around this much at least. The mental body is even more plastic, it extends much farther. And it's actually elastic. We could have done a simple experiment to extend it, make it larger and smaller. You'll notice when you go into a crowded space, as if your personal space shrinks to block out. And when you go into a space in nature, you feel, I can breathe, I can expand, and your consciousness widens out. Thank you, you can go back. So this was just to show you that in reality, our physical body is inside our subtle bodies and layers. So the question now coming to the soul, in fact, our soul is not even properly integrated and individualized within us. It's there as a backdrop supporting. So it can be seen sometimes even as an environing influence rather than inside. But the description in the Bhagavad Gita is when you have the experience of the soul, it is described as if thumb-sized person within you. And that's just the way in which one perceives it. But the influence is not inside, it is rather enveloping and embracing from outside in most cases. And when you become aware of what we call the self, which is the one divine consciousness of which our soul is a part, an individualization, then you experience the whole universe within you. And you experience yourself inside everything. And this is one of the most incredible experiences to have. And this is all accessible to us, within reach, and it's not difficult. So, I hope I have opened for you a new way of looking at yourself and your life. And while you may still think about your future, you realize how pointless it is to plan too much because you cannot plan. The future is so uncertain. But what you can plan for is to develop your own capacity, As you grow in self mastery, you will grow master of your circumstances, and whatever your future may throw at you, you will be able to deal with it because you will be master. Okay? So start first by becoming more conscious of who you truly are, and in all these layers, as well as the deeper and higher center and your higher potential. And second, from there, why did you choose to take birth? What is it you have to do in this life which is uniquely yours? And give yourself some time in those directions. You can easily lose your entire life chasing after a job or a desire or a fantasy, and at the end you look back and say, I wasted my time. Let that not happen. Start now doing the things which will give you deepest fulfillment and deepest satisfaction, not chasing desire, but really inspiration and aspiration that is within you. And I would like to request that we close with a short concentration so that everything that we have dwelt upon, discussed, and I aspired for, let that be absorbed within us and centered within us. After.
Thank you so much, Sraddhalu.